everyone. Welcome back to my channel, True Crime with Jess Rose. How you all doing? I hope you're all okay out there. Oh no. Oh. I'm sorry. It is alive, so things tend to... I thought I'd try that. What do we think? It's okay, isn't it? I hope you're all okay out there. Thank you for joining me. I'm just going to hang on a little bit longer because if you're watching tomorrow, I'm just waiting for a couple of people to join in the live. Hi, Hayley. How are you? Hi, sis. You're not going to believe. I started this. I was actually on time. I genuinely was. And then my phone started ringing. I could have gone crazy. So I had to stop the live and restart again. But here I am. So I actually wasn't late originally. But how are you? Are you ready for Thursday night? The True Crime Thursday night. Jess Rose Day. You got it before I could share it to you. Oh, okay. I don't know what that is. I don't know. Have a little chat. Just might hang on a couple of minutes because I am really late and just fit a little bit. But yeah, I just thought I'd try this filter slightly. But yeah, are we all okay? Guess where I'm going this time next week? Guess where I'm going to be? Happy Jess Rose Day! Yay! Well, Jess Rose Day next week is going to have to be... Hi, Phil. How are you? Yes, it's Jess Rose Day. I was just saying that next week we're going to have Jess Rose Day just for this once on a Wednesday. And you know why? Because this time next week I'm going to be at the, I think it's called the Serial Killer Next Door or something, with Emma Kenner at the Alex. I'm very excited. I'm very, very excited about it. So, yes, so this time next week I'll be in an audience with Emma Kenner. So what I'm going to do, yes, I'm going to do my live on, I think I'll either do it on the Wednesday or the Friday. But let me know at the end how you feel and what day you think I should do what night, because obviously I want you to I know she's ace, isn't she, Hayley? But obviously I can only do it if I've got yous watching, so just let me know between yous which night's better for you lot. And hi Natalie, how you doing? It is Natalie. Yes, it is. She's ace, isn't she? I'm really excited. I'm really, really excited. I'm going with a neighbour of mine, and yeah, we've both got... She sometimes comes in. I don't think she can make it tonight, but yeah, if you don't mind what night next week, I don't know, maybe Wednesday then. The case I'm doing tonight, it's horrible. But I have got another one to do for you all, and I just don't know if we're ready for that one yet, because it's awful. It's possibly, and it's me saying this, it's possibly the worst story I've ever heard. Ever heard, looked at, researched, even just heard out in the ether. It's horrific. So I'm thinking of maybe doing that one for you, but it's... Oh, I will prepare you for that one. The story tonight, again, just as awful. I'm not one maybe that taken away. It's just, obviously they're all different. So tonight's story, I'm going to start now. Tonight's story is the do we know Kelly White, I believe. But yeah, tonight's story is the torture of Andrew Gardner. And I've put / Claire Nichols because I've noticed a few people will put the victim and the perpetrator on their title. Now, I always like to put the victim first because I don't like to give them, the perpetrator, that platform. But I've noticed people doing that, so I don't know if I'm supposed to do that. So I've put her name in anyway. But it's yes, it's the case, the torture of Andrew Gardner. Okay, so we're going to start now. Andrew Gardner, it's similar. I wouldn't call it the same as other stories I've done where I put them under the title of disability mate crime. You know, we've done many of those stories. You know, we've got Gemma Hayter, Sean Rossington, Lee Irving. We've done Jennifer Doherty not long ago. You know, it's not the same because I wouldn't, even in those circumstances, I wouldn't even begin to call the people in this story friends of any sort. Not that any of the others were, I'm just saying. So I haven't put it under that title, this story. But Andrew Gardner, okay, he was born in 1974 in Gateshead in the UK, so UK crime. His parents are Ken and Jean Gardner. He had two brothers, and he came from a very loving home life, very lovely family. He was said to be a really kind, loving, polite, shy boy, you know, just a really, really nice lad. The thing with Andrew, unfortunately, he did have learning difficulties, learning disability. He had a learning disability, cognitive issues. So although at home, hi Mum, hello, how are you? Mum's entered the chat. Sorry if you're watching tomorrow. My mum's joined us. So yeah, I was just starting off, Mum. It's the Torture of Andrew Gardner. I was just mentioning that it is a UK crime, and although he came from a very, very loving family, he did have learning disabilities. So he was the victim of a lot of bullying at school, not treated right, very nice out of the house at all. And it was a real shame, it was said, because he was such a nice boy, really unassuming, very slim built, you know, just wanted friends, like many of these stories that I've done, just wanted to meet good people. How come they just can't meet good people? Mum, meet Phil and everyone. You know, why can't they just meet a good group of people? I mean, I'm sure there's many cases of people meeting, you know, a great group of friends and great partners and everything else. I'm just saying that it just seems I'm coming across a lot of these cases where vulnerable people are, they're not only being taken advantage of, they're being treated horrifically. It's awful. It's awful that as a society this is something that goes on. So Andrew, like I say, very loving home life, grew up very close to his brother, very close to his family. But in 2005, so we're going to fast track a little bit. So we come up to 2005, and at this point, Andrew's 31. And he meets a lady by the name of Claire Nichols. Oh, my God. I'm going to keep my opinions of her just for a second. So Claire was a single mom. When she met Andrew, she was 24. And at that point, she was a single mom for 3 children. And Claire, even at that time, now she was, like I say, she was only 24 at this point. She already had a long history of being very, very violent to her partners. She was just a vile woman, girl. So just a bit of a backstory on Claire. Claire was born in 1982 in Portsmouth. And she was raised seeing a lot of domestic violence with her parents, in her family. And she ended up leaving home at 15. Now, Well, once she got to 18, so we're now at the year 2000, she gets into a relationship with a gentleman by the name of John Peterson. I'm throwing a few names at you, but I will keep like saying them again so we can keep up. But she meets a man by the name of John Peterson. He's 42. She was 18. So you would think, and we've done cases like this, that it would be her getting manipulated, wouldn't you? Oh, no, no. This girl, John Peterson, who was 42, later on called her a she-devil. He just said she was very controlling, she was very violent with him. She used to beat him, she used to humiliate him. But before you start to feel bad for old John, don't. Because John was actually a registered paedophile. Yeah. By the time he'd met Claire, he'd already raped a 5-year-old little girl. So that's what I'm saying. Don't feel bad for John here. You know, the circumstances are different, but don't feel bad for him. Claire knew this. She knew this, and she still went on to have 3 kids with him. 2 little girls and a little boy with a registered pedo. So social services get involved, of course, as they should. I don't know what took them 3 kids to get involved, but anyway, they get involved and say, get rid of him or we're taking the kids. Do you know what little old Claire did? She just up sticks and left with John in tow and her kids. She had 2 little girls. It's not like she had 3 boys and she was hoping for the best. No. She had 2 girls as well. So, but like I say, but the signs of it, Claire didn't care about anybody. So her kids, you know, why would we think she'd care about them anyway? So she kept John in her life for a certain couple of years, but then in 2003, she broke up with him and she moved on to a guy called Steve Martin. Now, Steve at this point was 38, I believe. And in 2003, she'd have been 21. So she liked her older fellas. But this is what's crazy about it. The older fella she chose, which again you would think would be more of the dominant person in the relationship. No. Do you know why? Because she chooses vulnerable men. She would go out of her way to choose vulnerable men, and Steve was no different to that. Now, Steve and Claire went on to have sort of an on and off again relationship for over the next 7 years. So she's back and forth with him and everything else. But do you want to know a little secret about Steve? He was vulnerable, but he'd been with her mom for 7 years. And then moves on to the daughter, or the daughter moved in on him. This is just, it's mind-blowing, isn't it? It's crazy. But yes, so Steve had been in a 7-year relationship with her mom, moves in with Claire, and they start off a relationship, and it said that Steve himself had an IQ of 59. So he was in the lowest 1% in the country. So he was vulnerable himself. You know, he was easily controlled, and she honed in on that. It seemed she had that ability to just spot vulnerable people that she could control, that she could manipulate, and that she could intimidate. And she, you know, like I say, she's a violent girl. She's a violent woman. So now, even though he was being physically battered by her, he was her lapdog. This is Steve. Anyway, 2005, she meets Andrew Gardner. What a shame. Now, I've already explained how lovely this guy is. I've already explained he does have learning difficulties. He comes from such a loving family. And he was at the job centre to go and apply for a course. He wanted to go on a course for himself. And he bumps into Claire. The chances of these two meeting under any other circumstances were probably slim to none, but they just happened to meet at this. Oh, such a bad time. So it said that she targeted him, so maybe she'd heard him saying, maybe it was a course for someone with learning difficulties. Maybe she'd overheard the conversation, but it is said she targeted him. So Andrew moves in with Claire quite quickly and her 3 children. She insisted upon it. But also living at the home is Claire's brother, Simon. Okay, so at this point in the story, we've got Claire, her brother Simon, her 3 children, all living in quite a small property, I believe, and she moves Andrew in with them. Okay. Simon, her brother, who at this point was 21, so Claire would have been in 2005, I think she'd have been 24. Her brother was 21. He also had quite low intelligence. Again, very easily manipulated by Claire. Done anything he was told, and if he didn't, there was hell to pay. She no qualms on beating up her brother. It doesn't say whether she was hands-on with her children. I haven't heard that. I haven't read that. I haven't seen it. But is that because she had many people in her life that she could beat, on a whim? I'm not too sure, but it is said that, it hasn't been said that she ever laid hands on her children. That's all I know about this. But she was very handy with her brother, like I say. So when Andrew moves in, her wrath to her brother is completely switched on to Andrew. She very, very quickly. And it would be for ridiculous reasons. Very early on, she didn't want him to eat. She decided to starve him. Really early on. And it was said that she would jump on him if he was near the cupboards, and she'd say he was a drain on her resources, and he'd ask her if he could eat during the day, and if she said no, he'd have to wait until everyone went to bed and rustle through the bin, and very humiliating. Just such a shame that he had to meet this vile excuse of a woman. So we come to 2007 now, and she's now pregnant with Andrew's baby. Now, it's said at this point, this would have been why Andrew wouldn't have left, because she was pregnant with his baby. And he was very happy about it. Obviously, he's over the moon. He's very excited to be a dad. She's not bothered. She didn't care. But she still continues to starve him, still continues to beat him. It got worse while she was pregnant as well. She actually ripped the pockets out of his trousers, so if he tried to sneak food into his trousers, it'd fall through. So then it said, I'm so sorry. It said that in Ken and Jean, you couldn't make it up. I don't know if you can see that, but there's a call trying to come through while I'm on a live, and I don't know who it is, but let's ignore it and let's pretend it didn't happen. Okay, now Ken and Jean, obviously Andrew's parents, they only got to see Andrew once in this time. And it was said that when they saw him, Andrew was 5'9". He was quite a slight built fella anyway, but they got the shock of their lives when they saw him. They got to see him when he told them about the pregnancy. And they were just gobsmacked at the appearance of their son. Now, their son had needed their help all his life. So, of course, you would be very concerned for your son anyway. But knowing he's vulnerable, I can't imagine. I can't imagine how they felt. And he would go back to her because she was pregnant with his baby. It was like she got him now. So, okay, so that was his parents. They said he looked skinny, beaten, and broken. They were his parents' words. So, 2008, Claire has her 4th child, her 3rd girl, and obviously Andrew's daughter. And he's so happy, but does he get a chance to enjoy that? Does he get a chance to take part in bringing up his daughter? No, he doesn't. Because by this point now, Claire has enlisted her brother, Simon, to take part in these beatings, especially while she was pregnant as well. You know, she didn't want to get her hands dirty while she was pregnant too much. So she used to, if she didn't feel like beating him, she'd get Simon to do it, or she'd get Simon to pin him down so she could jump on him. You know, she liked to burn him with cigarettes, with lighters. And he's losing energy. He's being starved. He can't defend himself. He won't fight back. It's just not in his nature. And things are just getting worse for Andrew. It's just heartbreaking. So in July of 2008 now, they moved to 14 Arthur Street, and this is in Chiltern in the UK. And it said that the neighbours didn't even know that Andrew lived there. They would see Simon, they'd obviously see Claire, they'd see the kids. They didn't know Andrew lived there because Andrew wasn't allowed to leave the house. He wasn't allowed. This is a grown man. He wasn't allowed to leave the house. And 9 times out of 10, he wasn't in any fit state to leave the house. He was obviously getting a lot of verbal abuse. She was still starving him. He was very malnourished. He was going through a lot. He really was. He was having a really hard time. Like I say, he couldn't have a relationship with his daughter. But now that she was there, it was said that that's because, just slightly off topic, it's always said with regards to domestic violence, why don't you leave? Why don't you just go? Just run away. And it's, I think sometimes it does come from I don't want to say an ignorant place, but it's not that easy. There are so many circumstances when people are in these situations of why they can't leave, why they don't leave. And we all know, I've done many stories of cases where they have left and things get even worse. So it was said that the reason Andrew's reason for not leaving was he wouldn't want to leave his daughter in her hands, and who can blame him? You can't blame him for that. So we come to February 2009. Guess who comes back on the scene? It's not Pedo John, before you think that. It's not. He's long gone. But we have back onto the scene Steve Martin. Remember the fella, IQ of 59, very easily manipulated. Well, he's back. She gets him to move in too. So now, in this home, I believe it was only a 2-bed house as well. 2 up, 2 down. We have Claire, her brother Simon, her on and off boyfriend Steve. We have 4 children, one of whom belonged to Andrew, who is also living there. Well, we say living there. Is he really living a life there? At this point, once Steve comes into the equation as well, it gets 10 times worse. If you didn't think it could, it does. And I'm gonna run through very quickly what was going on with Andrew during this time. Okay, so at this point now, she's got Steve to back her up to torture this man. Remember I said Andrew's a slight frame. He's not a big built man. Even Steve looks quite stocky. Simon, her brother, looks quite puny. He looks like her. If you after this, if you want to go and have a look at these people, there is only one photo of Andrew that anyone has found online. And he does look very slight in it. I don't know what year it was taken. He's kind of smiling in it. So I'm not too sure the circumstances of his photo. Wait until you see the photos of Claire and her brother. Oh my God. And Steve, anyway. So we now have 3 people that are torturing Andrew. They're using hot boiling water. What they do, they make him get into the bath and then pour hot boiling water on him from a kettle. They pour it all down his back, his neck, and they take special care to burn the life out of his feet. I assume so he can't go anywhere. So that's a real favourite torture of Claire's. She likes to really, really, really scald his feet. He was burnt with cigarettes and lighters. She gets the kids. This is where although the kids were there, I told you it was only a 2 up, 2 down. There are 4 kids there. Andrew's daughter's still only 2 at this point, so, she's not too aware of what's going on. But Claire's other kids from Pedo John were at this point now 5, 7, and 9. She gets them to take part in the torture. She encourages it. She doesn't just encourage it, she forces it. So she gets them to dig in his skin with keys, use knives on him, jump on him. And he's just such a gentle soul that it was never said anywhere that even with the kids, he tried to push them away. He allowed it to happen. I don't even know if he had the strength to fight it at this point, but it was never said that he really fought back. It just wasn't in his nature. I suppose he just didn't get why were they doing this to him? He was stomped on. He was kicked in his head. He was stamped on his head repeatedly. They drew a noughts and crosses board with a serrated knife on his back and allowed the kids with knives and keys to play noughts and crosses on his back. It was scarred. It was branded into his back. It was with extension cords. They used to knot up towels to whip him with. Wires. One of his legs were cut so badly with that serrated knife that exposed his tendons. He was tied up to a burning radiator so he couldn't leave. And this was just for fun. It was for kicks. he didn't do anything wrong. It wasn't for any particular reason. This was just, he wasn't moving quick enough for her when she was asking him to do something, or telling him, demanding him to do something. He wasn't moving quick enough for her. And when she couldn't be bothered, she'd get Steve or Simon to do it, or she'd get them to pin him down to the ground while she jumped up and stamped on his head. So we come to March 2009. Claire, again, is having great pleasure. At this point now, his ribs have become, where she wants to put all her anger into, and she gets Simon and Steve to pin him down, and she jumps up and down on his ribs. She would nail into his ribs, obviously breaking and fracturing his ribs while she's doing it. It's just that horrific. The kids would watch this. This wasn't, once the kids have gone to bed, let's lay into poor Andrew. This is at all times of day and night. This is, kids, go on, just go and knock yourselves out on Andrew. I just can't imagine what this poor man was thinking. Like I say, he could no longer walk at this point now. It was said because he most likely, obviously, would have had internal injuries at this point. The constant jumping on his ribs, excuse me, and where his ribs had fractured, it was causing him internal injuries. It was causing him internal bleeding. So what they did, they propped him up against a wall, and they just left him there, dying. He was dying at this point. Like I say, the kids witnessed everything. They witnessed all of this, and they were just stepping over him. Oh, and there was a little thing that I missed out. What they used to do after they'd given him a hiding, they, obviously, he hadn't slept on a bed. He'd never been able to sleep on a bed in this house. So he would be made to sleep on newspaper so he didn't get any blood on the carpet. And then during the night, sometimes when Claire would feel especially frisky, her and Steve would come downstairs, wake Andrew up. And can you imagine in that pain how difficult it would be to go to sleep? They would wake him up so they could get frisky together in front of him. They would make him watch. Now, remember, Claire was Andrew's girlfriend. She'd had his baby. And she brings in an on and off boyfriend who she was off with when she met Andrew to have her way with in front of him. The words just escape me. I don't care if Steve had a lower than average IQ. I don't care. You would know that was wrong. You would know everything I've said was wrong. I can't give that excuse for Steve or Simon. Everything I'm telling you, we know she's the master manipulator. She's the vile one, and she probably would have done a lot of damage to Andrew without the other two's help. But, we know that. But the fact that they were there and they not only watched, and held him down, they also took part in a lot of these beatings. They took part in it. They kicked him. They stamped on him. They jumped on him. They were very much a part of this. So although I'm going in on Claire because she is the master manipulator behind this, them two were involved. They were very much involved as well. Okay, so Thursday, March the 12th, 2009. Now, obviously, I'd said he'd been propped up against a wall. It was said that at this point he was most likely dying. They didn't care about that. They didn't care. They wanted one last hurrah. So another beating begins. And again, Simon and Martin hold him down. And she begins jumping up and down on his ribs again, kicking him, punching him. It was said that on this night she actually fractured his burnt foot because she kicked it from one side to the other. When she got tired, Simon jumped on him. When Simon got tired, Steve jumped on him. They didn't stop until Andrew was dead. And that's how he died. They just didn't stop. They knew he was dying. And they just carried on. So, do you want to know what these smart people said? Well, Claire, you know, the clever one of the bunch. So it's gone into the early hours. So we're now at Friday, March 13th, 2009. So the last beating was on the Thursday night, very late. So in the early hours, a call was put through to 999. I believe it was Claire that called. She basically said he'd gone to the shops, right? He'd gone to the shop. You ready? He's gone to the shops and he got battered on the way home. And when he came in, he said he was okay, but he collapsed. So I'm phoning you. The minute the ambulance came out, yeah, and because she'd mentioned that he'd had a beating, you know, he was attacked outside of the house, the police came as well. Straight away. It didn't take a rocket scientist. It didn't take Sherlock Holmes to spot him on the floor and know full well that this was no one-off beating. You know, the detective that turned up actually said it was some of the worst injuries he'd ever seen on anybody. It was said that it was worse than people who'd been in car crashes, who'd fell from high buildings. It was just horrific. So all three straight away are arrested on suspicion of murder. So they had to wait for the autopsy on Andrew, and it took hours. It was said it took hours to do this autopsy on him because there was that many injury sites. Do you want to know how many there were? 150. 150 injury sites on this poor man who'd done nothing, who'd never done anything wrong to anybody, who all he wanted to do was protect his little girl. 150. Now, it was said that he was 5'9", and at the time of his death, he was only 120 pounds, which made him 9 stone. He'd been starved to nothing. He was bone. There was, you know. He had bleeding on the brain from the constant stamps to his head. He had 21 rib fractures. 21. I've had a sore rib. I don't think I've ever fractured my rib. I don't think I've ever done that. Even just having a sore rib, it's hard to breathe. It's very painful. 21 rib fractures this man had. And it was said that obviously the fractures had punctured his internal organs. So he'd been bleeding internally for quite a while, for a good few days before he died. Before he was beaten to death, should I say. There was knife slashes all over him. He had blood poisoning. Like I say, they said he'd internally drowned from the bleeding. He'd actually been dead for hours. It was said before 999 was called. So when they came out, not only did the injuries tell a story, but he'd been dead for quite a while. Simon and Steve, straight away when they were brought in, because like I say, that all three were arrested on suspicion of murder. And Simon and Steve, straight away, they did not, but they didn't try and say any story about some beating outside of the house or he'd been out shopping, none of that. It was Claire. Claire made us do it. And it does show that they weren't the most intelligent men, let's just say that, in the sense of, while they were blaming Claire, they were dropping themselves in it at the same time, because what they were saying to the police was, it was Claire. She made us jump on him. She made us beat him. She made us stab him with the knives. She made us etch keys into him. She made us jump up and down on his ribs. So, you know, it was just, as much as they were trying to put the blame at her door, they were also confessing to their part in his murder. So, not too bright. Whereas Claire, denied everything. Absolutely everything. Didn't know what they were on about. You know, not me. I haven't done anything to him. I don't know what they've done, but I haven't done anything to him. You know, right to the bitter end. Just a rotten rot. I wonder, did she think maybe she could manipulate the police? Maybe she could wriggle her way out of it, because she'd been so inept, is that the right word, at manipulating the men in her life up to that point. Maybe she thought she'd get away with it. Who knows? But she did. She continued to deny nothing to do with me. He was beaten out of the house. And if they're saying, because obviously the police were like, well, hang on a minute, Simon and Steve are saying they did this, they did that. Well, if they did that, it wasn't me. You know, fully thought this was going to bypass her and she'd be able to go home. All three were quite rightly charged with murder. All three plead not guilty. Do you want to know how evil this... Oh my goodness, I'm sorry. I don't know who that is. Do you want to know how evil... do you want to know how evil this woman really was? When the trial came about on the 4th of January 2010. When that trial was come about, she knew that her 7-year-old son, I presume, I don't know whether the two girls didn't want to, weren't asked or something. Haley, I know, I don't know what's going on. It's a private number as well. I'm sorry if you're watching tomorrow and you can't hear the phone, but my phone keeps going on the live, so please just ignore it. Okay, so back to Claire. She would have, I don't know if the daughters weren't asked or they said no, but she knew her 7-year-old son was going to have to go in the dock. And I've had a complete brain block. He would have to give evidence. He's 7 years old. He's already going to go through or been through a lot of trauma and will go through ongoing trauma. Because don't forget, at that age, at the age the kids were, and because their mum was saying this was okay, and all the other adults in the house are going, this is fine, beat him, it's okay. They'd have, I suppose, thought, well, okay. They were young enough not to have known really right and wrong. I'm not, Phil, I know, it's crazy. But they will, as they get older, they're going to know. They're going to have flashbacks and remember not only what their mum did and their uncle and Steve, they're going to remember their part in it. And although everyone in their lives will tell them, look, it wasn't your fault. You were babies, you didn't know. Imagine what that's going to do to them. I mean, this was 2010. So that 7-year-old's 20 now. I, I just hope they got the help they needed. I really do. So his rotten mum was quite happy, even after all of that, to make him testify on the stand rather than admit her guilt. That's how bad she was. So I don't think she kept her hands to herself off her kids because of any care for them. I think it's been proven from that she didn't care about her kids. I think it was only because she was too involved beating the men in her life. I think if there'd have been no men in her life, then them kids, it would have been a different story. I genuinely do believe that. Okay, so during the trial, she doesn't stop. While Steve and Simon are talking on the stand, she's shouting. She's glaring at them. She's shouting, you know, you're liars. You're lying. I didn't have any. She's trying to intimidate them from the dock, shouting at them. Obviously, this is in front of a jury, so she's not getting round them. And they were all found guilty. I don't know what other outcome there could have been, but it is the UK justice system, so, you know, you wouldn't know. But they were all found guilty. Claire was given life and with a minimum tariff of 32 years. Now, for a British story, you know, she'll still be in, if she does get released. I mean, that's the earliest she can apply for parole. There's nothing to say she will get out in 32 years, and I really hope she doesn't, because by that point, I've got her as being in her 50s. You know, she's still going to be old enough to do some, young enough, should I say, to do some damage. Simon, her brother, he got life with a minimum tariff of 25 years. So he'll still be in his 35, 45. He'll still be in his 40s if he gets out. And Steve, he also got life with a minimum tariff of 20 years. And he'll be in his 50s, I think. There's nothing to say these people will get out. It's just the tariff they've been given. And I think, considering it's the UK, you know, I was pleasantly surprised that it wasn't 10 years. But at the same time, it's like, I really hope they never get out, especially her, because she is a menace. And there have been many cases where the main person, the main perpetrator, has been in the 50s. She'll be perfectly capable of getting out and doing this whole thing again. So I hope when the time comes that they go back over this case and realise just how dangerous this woman is. Do you want to know the life of it, though? They all appealed. The audacity. They all appealed their sentences. Luckily, they were rejected. All of them were rejected. So, you know, I think they've exhausted all their appeals. So that's it. They're in. And that'll be the time they will do. Now, poor Ken and Jean, obviously Andrew's parents, do you know how they found out about it? They were watching the news and they heard about a poor man being found beaten and malnutrition, you know, starved. And they heard about this, but they didn't know where Andrew was living. So they never thought for a second that the news report they were watching was about their son, because in the report there was no name given. They didn't know until there was a knock at the door and it was the police to tell them it was their son. His mum went on to say that they have constant nightmares still over what he went through. They've been left empty shells of who they were as a family before this happened. And it's a hurt that will last them forever. No, they'll never get over it. How would you get over something like that? Especially when your child is vulnerable anyway and has learning difficulties and needed that care from not just their family but the wider society. And this is who we met. And what they said was, because it has been questioned, why did he stay? Why was he there? Because there is this stigma of men. You know, how can a woman beat up a man? Well, not only was it her beating him, but it was two other men as well. But we know this happens. You know, I've done the story of Alex Scale, sorry. You know, this does happen. It's just not spoken about. Not nearly enough anyway. But it was said by his family that he would have stayed for his daughter, to protect his daughter. Maybe he thought if he left, she'd take it out on his little girl. And he just didn't want her in that environment for what, you know, that was his reasoning for staying. And that just goes to show what a lovely boy what a lovely man this man was. And right to it cost him his life, and he still stayed in that house. And Claire, to this day, she's showed no remorse. It's been said she's obviously a sadist. It was said that she just sought out vulnerable men. And that was her lifelong thing. She just wanted to, she sought out vulnerable people. I don't know if it was just men. Did she, you know, if she'd have bumped into a woman, would it have been the same? I don't know. But she hasn't showed any remorse. And what was said, sorry, by his mum finally, was that she broke his spirit, but not his love. Meaning, you know, his love still powered through to stay for his daughter. So she didn't break that of him. And I think that's the only kind of, not positive, but that was the only thing. She couldn't take that from him. And that was the torture of, oh my God, I don't even know how to end it. That was the torture of Andrew Gardner. It's no punishment. It's not. And I know if this had been a story in the States, as we know, you know, 9 times out of 10, it ends in the death penalty. We know the case with Jennifer Doherty, 2 of those perpetrators on death row. The rest of them will never see the light of day again. You know, Andrew's family have still got that weight over them of knowing that those 3 monsters, there's a chance that they will be back out on the streets again. And the kids, Andrew's child, that are her 3, dad's a pedo, mum's a murderer. It's just, I just hope, one thing I will say, I just hope all 4 of them get so much help, because for them to have seen what they've seen, if they go on to do anything terrible, which when they're adults will be no excuse to do anything to, I'm not saying that, but she should get another 10 years for it, personally. If them kids do anything in the future, she needs to, and she has been released, let's say, she needs to be dragged back and either do her time again or at least do another 10 years, because it will be her fault. What them kids seen, went through. She made a 7-year-old testify. I've no words for her. I've no words for them. I just think, what a rotten trio of people. All of, and the kid's dad. There was just, him going into the job centre that day was just, you just wish that he hadn't. And do you know the worst thing? He wasn't going into sewing on. He wasn't going in for anything like that. He was going in to get himself on a course. And he bumped into her. It's just so sad. It's just so sad. And yeah, I just, like I say, all their appeals have been exhausted, and the last I've heard, you know, that's it. they will do their full time. But 13, no, where are we? 2010, aren't we? So 13 years have gone by. So Steve, old Steve, he's due out in, well, he's due for his parole hearing in 7 years. Oh, I just hope these people never get out. Never get out. I don't care about the IQ thing of Steve. I don't care about the IQ thing of my brother either. I don't care. I know, I understand that they can be easily maybe spoken to, but there's no excuse for what they did. None. I didn't give the excuse for the Greensboro sis. I'm certainly not giving the excuse to these two. I'm not. You know, this poor man he had learning difficulties. He was, he was vulnerable. It was just, bullies, cowards, everything, every word you can think of, I've thrown at. And a few others, but I've kept myself to myself this evening. I don't know if my mum's still watching, but I've kept any bad language off the channel. I do try to anyway. But that was the Torture of Andrew Gardner. I don't know what to say. It's just awful, isn't it? It's just awful. And yeah, a horrible story. And I never know how to end it, especially a story like this. So, what I will say is thank you so much for joining me for it. And like I say, next week, this time next week, I'll be with Emma Kenny. And I get to meet her. Did I tell you all? I get to meet her. Very excited. So, the story I was referring to earlier. Now, I know this story has been heartbreaking. Absolutely heartbreaking. And it has been horrific. And it always is when it's a vulnerable, but I don't get it. I don't understand who we are as a society, that we think it's perfectly okay to go after vulnerable people when, especially in some of the cases, now I haven't heard it about Andrew, but I have heard obviously in a lot of cases where mentally, even though, you know, Gemma Hayter, for example, you know, she was in her 30s, but mentally she had the age of 14, 15. The perpetrators, the 6 who murdered her, they were in their teens and very early 20s. So although she was older than them, mentally she was younger than them. And I still say it now, it should be classed as a child murder. In some sort of way, there should be some sort of category put into the justice system for this. I know it's said of a hate crime, but it's very hard to prove a hate crime. So in the sense of where it's a vulnerable person, I think it should be an automatic, a different category. I just do. And I don't know why it's not. I really don't. But I'll calm down now. I'm about to go off on a rant. I'll calm myself down. I hope you're all okay. And yeah, like I say, have you decided whether you'd like me to do next Wednesday or next Friday? Because as I've said, I'm going to be having an evening with Emma Kenny next week. And I get to meet her. I actually get to, well, I say I get to meet her. I don't know if it's a simple case of, can you sign me or can I have your autograph? Or I'll actually get to speak to her. I don't know. So Wednesday, I've heard Wednesday said. So should we do our next story on Wednesday? We'll have a Jess Rose Wednesday Jess Rose Day on a Wednesday instead of a Thursday. We can do that. And the story I've got for you on Wednesday, yeah. It's yeah. So I'll leave that. I'm just that reaction. That's all I'm gonna give you. I'm just giving you that because it's awful. It was one of them that I was like, oh no, I had to come away from and go back to a couple of times. It's oh no, don't know about this. So, but we're gonna do that on Wednesday. I hope you're all okay. I haven't been able to follow the comments, but oh no, we're not going to time out without the jingle. We're having the jingle, Tiffany. We have to have the jingle. Do you know why? Because we've all had a very solemn hour. Is that the right word? So we're gonna do the jingle. Is everyone ready? Okay. Thank you for joining me this evening. Please join me again on next Wednesday. And the oh God, do you know what I need? I need a drink because I need to get it right. Sorry, Tiffany. I know what you're saying, but we have to do it. Okay, so thank you for joining me this evening. Please join me again for my live on Wednesday. And like, comment, and subscribe, please. How's that? See, I didn't even do much of a dance that time. Was that okay? Like, comment, subscribe, please. That's my jingle. If you're new to the channel, this is my jingle that my sister tries to put me off doing week in and week out, and I have to. It has to come into play because you have to say it. Otherwise, people won't like comments. Oh, and by the way, if you are watching, all right, okay, I'll stop now. The shoulder, it's really high. If you have any are new watching tonight, if you don't mind liking it, and if you want to comment, but please like and subscribe. But it doesn't clock it on the live. So if once it's up on my channel, if you could go in and like it then. Why are you telling me no? Oh, because it hurts. Yes, that's why. It's only again. Yeah, if you could go in after and like it, I'd really appreciate it. I genuinely would. And yes, I just want to thank you all this evening for joining me. I don't know if my mum's still with us. I think she might have just came in and out, but I appreciate it, Mum. Thank you, Tiffany, for your input and your hatred of my jingle. It will just go down in the history of this film. Thank you, Phil. Thank you, Kelly, I think. Thank you, Hayley. And anyone else that, oh, Natalie, sorry. Oh, I'd hate to forget people. So thank you all this evening, and anyone else who's popped in and out. And I will see you all next Wednesday. Like, comment, subscribe, folks, please. Ooh. There we go. Okay, I gotta stop. See you all on Wednesday. Have a good week. Take care. Bye.